Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 139. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Monday, Steelers Nation. Hopefully everybody had a fun and safe weekend. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How did that Peter Brady audio setting turn out for you?
I think okay. I haven't really gotten much feedback, but I'm happy with it. I might put something out on Twitter to compare and contrast my audio, just so hopefully it sounds as good as possible. So still tweaking, still going through my Peter Brady phrase, but I'm getting there.
All right, fantastic. Let's see what's going on in the sports world this morning. The Steelers, obviously, the final week of their OTA sessions. Did you watch that basketball game last night or any of it?
Yeah, it was a really good game. I thought Denver was going to hit that three at the end for Murray, so it was a good comeback, but happy to see Miami tied up just so that series, has that feel of being competitive. You don't want to sweep in the NBA Finals.
Right. At least it does look like it's shaping up to be somewhat of a series there. It'd be interesting to see if the Steelers use this day, because obviously 4 days this week. One of those, you wonder if it's going to be a team building process. So I guess we're sitting here waiting to see if they're going to be on the field today or be somewhere in Pittsburgh, a team building exercise there. So not a lot obviously has happened since Friday, but we have a few things to maybe talk about today, right?
Yeah, from a kind of news standpoint, hard news standpoint, Pittsburgh reportedly bringing in 2 players for workouts, tryouts. Don't know exactly when that'll be. Probably Monday, Tuesday, something like that. Reportedly, offensive tackle Eric Smith coming in for a workout. He's been in the league for a couple of years, only appeared in 4 NFL games, spent time with the Jets. Not a tremendously strong or extensive NFL resume, but not a rookie necessarily. And the long snapper circuit continues, apparently, as according to the XFL, Rex Sunahara is coming in for a tryout as well. He actually spent time on Pittsburgh's roster throughout, 2021, I believe, late 2021 and early 2022. And so he's not new to Pittsburgh. And so they've really taken a look at some of these long snappers, and Antonio Ortiz. Nick Boyle came in during rookie minicamp. And so you think at some point they're going to sign one of these guys. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what's the point of, constantly rotating all these guys in for tryouts.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And they still sit at 89 players, active players as well, too, right? So right. Quite interesting that they haven't filled that extra spot here, as the final week of OTAs get underway. We'll see if there's any news that comes through on any transactions later today. But just some names is all it is at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, Sunahara is a guy that former high school receiver, is really tall. He's like probably the tallest long snapper in the NFL. He's 6'6". He went to, I think, Rhode Island, and then he transferred to West Virginia. He had spent time in Miami. Again, he got signed, I think, late in 2021 as a COVID insurance type thing during one of those weeks, put on the practice squad, and it's kind of bounced on and off. And then he got waived, I believe, after the 2022 rookie minicamp. So, not focusing on him too much, but just talking about the position at large, Pittsburgh, it seems like they want to try to find either maybe competition for Kuntz or at least somebody else on this team who can do some long snapping. So we'll see. But right now they still sit at 89. We'll see if they sign the tackle, see if they sign the long snapper, or go in an entirely different direction.
Yeah. All right. What else is newsworthy?
Not much. It's been a pretty quiet weekend. The busy cycle is kind of tamped down a bit. There was an article written in the Trib over the weekend, and sometimes you get, additional quotes that you didn't hear during the week of OTAs to kind of get held on to and then, published and written out after the fact. And this was the case here with, according to Joe Ruder, the Trib from Mason Rudolph, talking about the different concepts, new concepts being added to the Steelers playbook. And Rudolph said that there was some stuff that he's learning. And obviously he's, been with his team the entire time, San, for a couple of months when he was a free agent. And so it sounds like there's a couple of new concepts that will be added this year with the continuity of Kenny Pickett, the offense being more stable, more cohesive, Rudolph did not say what those new concepts were, and you can insert your own Matt Canada joke here, but that's the word for Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, hopefully it's just not six new the joke going around, six new kind of jet sweeps, right? Hopefully it's stuff that specifically can get the ball to the receivers out in space, maybe start attacking the some things that'll attack the middle of the field a little bit more. And so it'll be interesting to see what kind and how visible that stuff is. I mean, we should be able to pick it up right out of the chute a couple of weeks into the season, indeed, if that's the case there. So interesting quotes from him for sure. Our buddy Greg Cosell was back in the news this weekend, right?
He joined Ross Tucker on the Ross Tucker podcast as they went through the AFC North recap and just spent a couple of moments on Pittsburgh. But Cosell, as always, had a couple interesting thoughts. He's not sure about Broderick Jones starting week one, basically saying he felt like he was a pretty raw guy. Really even said year one. I don't know if he really meant that, literally, as in he doesn't know if Jones will start at all in 2023, but basically was a little less confident in Jones being the day one starter, this immediately penciled in guy. He recognized that Pittsburgh drafted him high and they may have plans that are different than Cosell's, but point is he seems less confident in Jones being the right option to start a left tackle than maybe where Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh fans may be at today.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine Broderick Jones not starting at some point, though, right? Or is it? I mean, when's the last time this team had a first-round draft pick that wasn't starting by the middle of the season? Let's see. Kenny Pickett last year was what? He got into the game week 4, and his first start was what, week 5, right?
Yes, against Buffalo. Yep.
How much further do you have to go back of first-round draft picks with the Steelers where one wasn't starting, say, by week 5 or week 6 of the season?
Yeah, we can go through the names. Najee Harris, day one starter. 2020, no first-round pick. Devin Bush, day one starter. Terrell Edmonds, partially with Morgan Burnett getting hurt, but still, day one starter. TJ Watt, he was, day one starter. Artie Burns, he played a lot his rookie year. I think he was a sub-package guy, but he was playing. Obviously, lineman, you can't do that type of stuff. But, yeah, point is, my whole thought has been basically after they realized how silly it was for Stephon Tuitt to sit behind Cam Thomas, they realized that, okay, our rookies need to play a lot sooner than we've been playing them.
Now, if you go back to obviously back when Dick LeBeau, there was times when, those first round picks, it took them a while to get on the field, right? You go back to
Cam Hayward had his first 2 years, right?
Yeah, Cam Hayward. I mean, but in today's NFL with the 5th year options and things like that, I mean, you got to find out what you have in these guys right out of the chute. It seems like, and I would think, the only thing I can somewhat see where Cosell's coming from had he went maybe first quarter of the season or something, but for him, and maybe it was just a misspoke on his part to say year one. Maybe he meant, first couple weeks of the season, just came out wrong or whatnot. But obviously, Broderick Jones comes out of college with limited overall starter experience, right? And maybe that's kind of where he's hedging that it might take him a little while to acclimate himself. But I still think it's wide open for a chance for Broderick Jones to be a week 1 starter. And if he's not, I would be absolutely shocked if Broderick Jones is not starting by, say, week 5 or so.
I had the same thought as Cosell. I still think Jones is the favorite to start a left tackle as things sit today, but I don't want to write this in pen and just assume it because as Cosell, and as we pointed out, Jones is a raw guy, 19 career starts, 1 year full-time starter. It's not a lot of experience at that college level to make that jump to the NFL, even though it's a tremendous program he's coming out of in Georgia. And then B, learning Pat Meyer's system. We saw the growing pains that basically every Steelers lineman had last year adjusting the Myers system, and his specific techniques, especially in pass protection. Even veteran type guys like James Daniels. I mean, you think back to Daniels in the summer in training camp. I know, you weren't there to see it, but you read the reports. He looked terrible. I mean, he looked just miserable in training camp, and the line itself in the preseason looked pretty rough. And they evened things out over time, and they got a lot better. They were healthy and all those kinds of things, but it is going to be an adjustment period. And so you combine those two things along with Dan Moore being a guy with experience, a hard worker. He's got a leg up on, obviously, Jones, because he's been in Meyer's system. He's been in the league now for going on year 3. I just don't want to assume that Jones is 100% going to have that job for week 1, because there are some obstacles he's going to have to overcome.
All right. So, once again, this team got so lucky with the injuries, especially on the offensive line last year. And you go out and you first time they've drafted a tackle. Oh, by the way, congratulations! Good interview on the Philadelphia Eagles website.
Oh, thank you.
Fran and those guys do a great job over there, don't they?
Him and Ben Fennell are two of the best.
Yeah, those guys are X and O's centric, and they really keep a good ear to not only what obviously what the Eagles do, but around the league as well too. So that was entertaining. But going back to the Steelers in tackle, first time they've drafted a tackle in the first round since even before Kevin Colbert arrived. Long story short, I mean, Broderick's going to start at some point during the season. The only way he doesn't is if Dan Moore all of a sudden becomes this shut down left tackle and Chukwuma Okorafor stay, both of them stay healthy over there. And that would be a fantastic problem to have. We're thinking, my God, look at what Dan Moore's doing, over there on that side. But it seems like it's just a matter of time before Broderick Jones hits the field as a starter. And we'll obviously now see how things go the rest of the offseason here and see if that's going to happen in week 1, week 2, or, how soon it can happen.
Let's just assume for a moment that Dan Moore is the week 1 starter. What has to happen for Jones to take that job? Is it where Moore has to just visibly struggle mightily, or is it just where they have a thought where Jones just needs some more practice reps and some time and some seasoning, and eventually he's going to get the nod? Even if Moore's playing inoffensively, he's playing just okay, but they're going to make the switch to see what the rookie can do. Like, what do you think would have to happen for Jones to become the starter if he's not the starter out of the gate against the 49ers?
Well, I mean, I think it starts with the tape on Dan Moore, right? Plain and simple. It starts there, and then obviously, how comfortable are you with Broderick Jones' progression?
Sure. Here's my guess, and I'm getting over my skis here, and I hate projecting some of this stuff out because who the heck knows what's going to happen. And again, I still think Jones is the favorite to start. If Moore does start week 1, I think by week 3, Broderick Jones is the starter. And I say that because, and this is probably unfair to Dan Moore, but he's going to get Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett the first 2 weeks, get that out of the way. Moore's probably going to have some problems there. It's going to kind of be an easy transition time to say, okay, you got past the 2 top edge guys. Moore got put in some tough matchups, probably didn't look great. And so now let's ready to go with Broderick Jones for week 3.
Yeah, and hopefully Bosa and Garrett don't wreak too much havoc, right? So yeah, I mean, I can understand that. I mean, it would be quite a test, though, right? For Broderick. I mean, you want to talk about getting thrown into the deep end of the pool,
sure.
Right away. That would most definitely qualify as that. Although, I know Garrett switches sides some, but it does seem like he's more on, going against the left tackle more times than not. Whereas, I'm trying to remember Bosa, isn't he more equally?
Yes, he flips a bit more left and right side.
Right, yeah. Right. So, and as we've talked over the years, there's no such thing as hiding your tackles in today's NFL. So, anyway, that's going to be a topic of conversation moving forward throughout the rest of the summer, right? Will he or won't he be the week 1 starter? So we'll see.
And just one last note, when I say about that scenario of Jones bypassing the tough matchups to begin the year, week 1, week 2, I don't say that to advocate for quote unquote protecting the rookie and hiding him from these top matchups. I don't believe in that. Either the guy's ready or he's not based on his own practice. And as you said, throw this guy in the deep end of the pool and see what happens. You're going to face some really good rushers anyway. I just think logically that would kind of be the excuse that you could make. Jones not ready week 1. Let's see how Moore does. Moore probably takes some lumps in the first 2 weeks, and that's kind of the easy way to say, okay, Moore's not playing great, although no tackle probably would play great against those two guys, and Bosa and Garrett. Now let's make the switch for week 3. Who do they play week 3? Who's their week 3 opponent?
And it's the Raiders, right?
It's the Raiders at Las Vegas, yeah. And yeah, that was Max Crosby, but he's on the other side most of the time. Now they may flip him a little bit, but it shouldn't be as much of an issue for whoever the left tackle is in week 3.
Unless, obviously new regime over there though, right? I mean, but you would think he is a lot better on the left side of that defense. So I mean, you talking about some edge rushers right out of the chute.
Yeah,
wow.
It's a crazy matchup. Although if I'm the Raiders, and let's just say all this that I just laid out happens, and Jones becomes the week 3 starter, his first NFL start, I'm putting Max Crosby on that right side a couple snaps and testing this rookie to see how he does on the road in his first NFL start. I'm not going to just glue Max Crosby to left end the entire time, and I'm gonna test that rookie a bit out of the gate.
Yeah, because you're also probably going to you should have Isaac Seumalo on that side, so you want to see how the communication is over there and everything that goes along with it, right?
Right. So that'd be my thought. Again, we're way down the road and just speculating because it's June 5th and not a lot's going on, but just kind of mapping this out in my head right now.
Speaking of offensive line, we've talked a lot about center and backup center specifically, and you threw out the name Jimmy Morrissey the other day, and you wrote about it this morning. And I tell you, yesterday I found myself going down several different wormholes, if you will. I went and looked at the center position as a whole across the NFL. Looking at I looked at all the depth charts over on our lads, and then went to over the cap and looked at the hierarchy of the pays. Now, man, center around the league right now, not only when it comes to starters, but depth around the league. There's not a lot of big names that really stick out.
Yeah, and that's why I think Morrissey makes a lot of sense. And I don't want to take all the credit. Somebody mentioned that in our live stream, I believe last Monday, a week ago, and just mentioned the name about Kenny Pickett's teammate. And I kind of ran with it from there and wrote the article today. I think it makes a lot of sense he's got some size. He's got a little bit of athleticism. He's got the Kenny Pickett connection. They were teammates. They were center quarterback partners for a couple of years over there at Pitt. And Morrissey's a guy that may get squeezed out because you're right. Not just center depth, but I would wager without seeing all the depth charts, O-line depth in general across the NFL is weak just because it's the hardest position to find quality depth. It's so scarce. It's so underdeveloped in college and even in the NFL. And so finding those depth names is difficult to do, where I think Morrissey's chances of not making the roster come into play are the fact that he didn't start last year. They had Scott how do you say the name? Quisenberry, yeah. And so he's there. He re-signed. Not a great starter, but he's there. He's above Morrissey. Then they go out there and they draft 2 centers and Juice Scruggs from Penn State, round 2. Probably going to be their day 1 starter. And then Jared Patterson in the 6th round from Notre Dame. I think some people have projected him at guard. I think he lacks the length to play guard, but he's going to be a center guard type of guy. So you have a veteran guy already in Quisenberry. You have 2 rookies. I could see Morrissey basically working his way out, being a potential, 90-man cut down at the end of August type of guy. And so for Pittsburgh, they're going to evaluate their own internal options, of course, but I think Morrissey makes a lot of sense.
And I look back at Morrissey from last season, 1 snap at center, 50, and he played 57 offensive snaps in total in 3 different games. Just 1 snap at center came early in the season in week 3. The other 56 snaps came at left guard for him.
Okay, yeah, he's got a bit of guard experience too. I think in 2021, I believe he was playing more center. We can check that now with Justin Britt being out. So if you have numbers on that, go ahead.
He played was center in 2021 in 4 different games. Looks like he started and played the entire time at center, 258 snaps at center in total. Now, to quantify this, I mean, we're not talking that this is, oh my God, look at the find that they got here in Jimmy Moore. I mean, it's literally when and I invite everybody listening, run over to our lads, and you can look at all the depth charts on one page and then go through the center position and look at either a team's second string listed, or in some case, there's very few, I think, that have actually 3 in total there, and go look around the league and see how many of those names you recognize. And then run over to Captain and sort it by center. And to me, my main takeaway is, man, center position around the league just seems weak once you get past, the obvious big names, the Kelseys. And I mean, and my other takeaway is, man, Mason Cole doesn't look so bad, and look, he did have a pretty decent season last year, right?
Oh yeah. I think, again, this is a little bit of the comparison to Kendrick Green. So probably feels maybe a tad better than what it really was when you go from Green struggles to Cole's kind of steady, even play. But yeah, I thought Cole was excellent last year, and tough, and a warrior, and as a run blocker. I mean, he battled through those ankle injuries all year. So yeah, I thought it was a good season for him.
We're from where you sit right now, regardless what happens, with the backup spot moving forward here. Could you see this team drafting a center early in 2024?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, Cole's contract runs through 2024.
I think through next year, right?
Yeah, so through 2024, right? He's not a free agent after this year. He's a free agent after the
2024 season, I believe.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think I like Cole a lot. I don't think he's necessarily their long-term answer, and I think Pittsburgh is still looking for that Marquise Pouncey type, that probably better athlete, and that guy that could anchor the position for a decade, the way that so many great Steelers centers have: Webster, Dawson, Mansfield, Pouncey. I don't think Cole is quite that guy. I mean, I'm content if he's this team's starting center. That's no problem with me. But yeah, I mean, to answer the question, I think they could be looking at that if they want to try to find really a strong future building block.
The other wild card in all this is obviously Spencer Anderson, right? To see what transpires. I know there was an article in the Trib, I think yesterday or the day before, about how he's kind of flying under the radar. And, he's a 7th round draft pick, but, you got one that's a 7th rounder that's not flying under the radar, at least according to our early OTA reports and Corey Trice. But, Spencer Anderson's kind of become this forgotten guy from the draft class right now. But as we talk, coming out of the draft, position flexibility there. And I think kind of the takeaway from that article was, who was it? Was it Dan Moore that had the quotes on him? Say, I didn't even know he could play center, and evidently he can. So I guess you would kind of get the feeling, of course, they can't report what they see, at OTAs unless players tell them something. But I think the big thing I'm looking forward to once get into camp is how much actual work are they giving him at center, and can he potentially be, the backup? Because I mean, as of right now, I mean, it still sounds like Kendrick Green is the primary backup.
As of right now, based on early OTA results, so basically your options in terms of backup center, you could probably throw out 4 names: Kendrick Green, Spencer Anderson, Brian McCollum, and even Nate Herbig, who has played a tiny bit of center. Obviously, his profiles as more a true guard, but if you want him to be all 3 type of guy, and boost his value a bit, maybe you could try to give him some center reps this summer and see how it goes.
All right, so that'll be something to watch. That really look forward to your reporting once they get into camp here. I mean, they can this team go into this season with Kendrick Green dressing as the backup center, slash swing guy? I mean, it's not unthinkable, I guess, but it's not ideal either.
I mean, how does he look during the summer? Do we see tangible improvement? Do we see growth?
Can he stay on his feet?
That last year? Yeah, exactly. Those types of things. Can he handle power? Can he, be able to function within the rules of Meyer's scheme and for significant contact and some of the on-body, more aggressive pass sets? We'll have to see. So to answer that question, it's going to be based largely off of, do we see any sort of growth in year number 3?
Interesting. I mean, and once again, I don't blame you for writing about Jimmy Morsey, because once again, you look around the NFL right now and just, I mean, even though there's probably going to be a guy or two, a veteran that's earning, I don't know, $3-4 million, I guess, getting cut, because of him probably being the best on the block, there might be a race to scoop him up around the NFL,
Right. And Morsey will
whoever
be cheap.
That is.
Right. Morsey will be cheap on his,
right.
I guess maybe not on his rookie deal because he got cut. He was a draft pick of the Raiders, but a cheap deal, obviously. And so he's basically like J.C. Hassenauer, but probably more athletic. That's Jimmy Morsey, and he's got the picket connection. He can play a bit of guard, and he can play center. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it makes you. And will J.C. stick with the Giants?
That's a good point. Could he come back? Yeah. I mean, what does the Giants center depth chart look like? I mean, I assume Hassenauer is probably the backup right now.
Let me look here.
You were doing your Sunday.
Yeah,
look at the depth charts there.
I got it bookmarked.
Oh, they drafted John Michael Schmitz.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so he should start. But they're backup.
JC is listed as the primary backup. Now they've got several. Let's see. I'm trying to think of any of these guys listed as guard if they're center.
Did Bredesen play any center at Michigan?
Who?
I think
Ben Bredesen. It seemed like he played a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah, and look, I see Jack Anderson. He was a pretty versatile guy. I think he's out of Texas Tech, and maybe Shane Lemieux. I don't know if Lemieux played center at Oregon.
Wasn't he one that? Wasn't he a Senior Bowl guy?
We talked about him when he came out. Yeah, I don't remember the context,
right.
But I know Jack Anderson. I think can play all 3 interior spots.
Okay. All right. So anyway, center still the backup center spot's going to be something interesting to watch as well moving forward through the offseason.
Yeah, be watching that pretty closely overall. So speaking of offensive linemen and depth and guys getting released, Joe Haeg just got released by the Browns. This just came across 5 minutes ago, and not that I'm suggesting Pittsburgh will pick him up, but we talked about him whenever he got released. It was kind of a surprise cut and didn't play for Cleveland, was on that roster, and is now off their roster.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably going to have at least some team sign him to a minimum value contract. I kind of doubt it'd be Pittsburgh at this point.
Yeah, I doubt it too. When you have LaRaven Clark, and obviously you draft Broderick Jones, but do want to mention that since we were talking about offensive linemen and depth and all those topics. Greg Cosell also had one other concern about, if you're a fan of the Steelers, you're not going to like what Greg Cosell has to say. He was concerned about Patrick Peterson playing in a potential man-heavy system that Pittsburgh may be running in 2023. I think it's a fair point again from Cosell.
Yeah, especially, I mean, there's all this talk about Peterson potentially getting some slot time as well. Is his health one of the most? I was thinking about this last night as well too. What if, God forbid, you were to lose him to injury?
You lost Peterson?
Yeah.
In terms of slot work, or just general?
In general. I mean, because you'd have to. I mean, obviously, assuming Levi Wallace, is on the roster, it would be Wallace and probably Porter on the outside until, depending on how fast you could track, what Corey Trice is. And then, we're back to the, when Peterson's not in the slot, who's going to be the slot. I was just thinking, man, because it just sounds like he's going to be a guy at least at this point of the offseason, to kind of assume that Cam Sutton role, what would it, it feels like it'd be a big thing to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, if you lost him, then you're up, Joey Porter. You're going to be the full-time guy. And then in terms of slot work, it probably goes back to Chandon Sullivan, which is a less than ideal option, but he's an experienced guy to play inside. And so you kind of take that when depth is tested, get guys with some experience at the least that have some, knownness to their game. So that's probably how it would stand as we sit here today.
Yeah, overall, I mean, it kind of, and he didn't speak much on, they kind of flew through the AFC North in that podcast episode, but he didn't seem enthralled with the Steelers, right?
No, at least, I mean, only would kind of mention those two names, right. I guess, but yeah, my concern with Peterson is the same. When they first signed Peterson, I know that the trendy stat at the time was Minnesota was a zone heavy team last year. Pittsburgh was a man heavy team last year. And those were all true, but I thought, well, maybe Pittsburgh will adjust their scheme. They're not necessarily beholden to playing as much man coverage this year as they did last year. But then you go out there, you draft Joey Porter Jr., you draft Corey Trice Jr. You've heard Omar Khan and this team talk about, being physical, pressing. Even Patrick Peterson in that story about Calvin Austin, he said, Brady Brown told him, go up there and press. I mean, that's kind of been the mantra of how Pittsburgh's built their roster. So I'm going to assume they're going to be a pretty man-heavy, press-heavy type of team this year. And at soon-to-be 33, is that best for Patrick Peterson? I think there are some real concerns there about how does he fit schematically in what the Steelers want to run this year.
Yeah, fair enough. Speaking of Calvin Austin, it sounds like he's got his wheels back up underneath him, right?
Yeah, that was a story that Peterson told on his podcast with Bryant McFadden, that they had that 7-on-7 rep. And I think we mentioned that last week that, Peterson found out real fast who that fastest receiver in that Steelers receiver room is, and it's Calvin Austin.
Well, hopefully he can stay healthy because they could certainly use, a dynamic player like that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dave. Just trying to brainstorm some ideas. We talk about the players. We evaluate the players on this roster quite a bit. How about evaluating the coaches? And that can be tough to do for, a bunch of reasons, obviously. But I had an article this morning on Steelers Depot, sticky top of the page, about ranking the basically 13 kind of main coaches, from head coaches to coordinators to head positional coaches. This does not include assistant positional coaches or quality control coaches. Just the positional guys, the coordinators, and the head coaches at number one. And I thought about, should Mike Tomlin really be at the number one spot? And I thought who might try to replace him. I just could not come up with a name. And so Mike Tomlin did take the top spot. Number two coach that I ranked was Carl Dunbar, the D-line coach. Alfredo Roberts, number 3. Terrell Austin, number 4. And quarterbacks coach Mike Sullivan, number 5. Do you have any thoughts or strong opinions on my quarterback, my coaching staff ranking list?
No, not definitely not in the top 3 there. I mean, Dunbar, well respected, obviously, and since taking over for John Mitchell, I think's done a great job with what he's had there, and now obviously a lot of going to be interesting to watch that defensive line this year, right? Because they're going to be, you potentially have some new guys in there, in Fehoko and Watts, and obviously you got a draft pick that you're going to want to try to fast track pretty quick in Keanu Benton, and I think overall, I mean, Dunbar's been pretty solid overall. Interesting, maybe that you have Alfredo Roberts over a guy like Terrell Austin, but I get it. I mean, he's light, right? And I think, I think overall, when it comes to the tight end position, the biggest takeaway the last couple of years has just been the blocking overall.
Yeah, I went with Roberts, and it's fair that if you want to put Austin over top of him, but just to see the growth and development from Pat Freiermuth, it was legitimately a top tight end in football right now. I know Zach Gentry's blocking took a step back in 2022, but in 2021, it took a big leap forward, and it had to because he was in danger of getting cut. It was him battling Kevin Rader. Gentry had been hurt, hadn't done much, was kind of this raw guy, not much of a receiver. Really wasn't a good blocker at that point in his career. He really turned things around. You see Connor Hayward progress, even though he's an atypical looking tight end. And you just watch the way that Roberts works with these guys in training camp. I mean, they are always first on the field in terms of when the other guys, the rest of the team is kind of just lounging around and they're playing catch and just kind of doing their own thing. Roberts always has the tight ends going through some preliminary drills over the bags, whatever that day looks like. And I think you see the work ethic for a young group, a group that's had some change to it. And you see those guys progress and pay off because Roberts really works these guys pretty hard. And so I think you watch these guys get better, get molded. That's why I put Roberts at high. And he does have a pretty lengthy NFL resume under his belt.
Feels like Danny Smith should be ranked lower.
Oh, I know. I'm going to yell that a lot about that. I had him at number 6.
And look, it feels like Pat Meyer. And look, I mean, I think Pat Meyer maybe should at least swap spots with Danny Smith for the sheer fact that look what he was able to do with that the second half of the season. Look, he got damn lucky because all those guys stayed healthy and all. But I mean, can we agree that the O-line overachieved during the final third of the season?
Sure, I would say that's fair.
So for however you want to quantify that, I mean, it's obvious it wasn't good enough because of what they went out and did this offseason, and it needed to be done anyway. But, it feels like because of what he was able to accomplish during the final third of the season, it feels like Pat Meyer should definitely be there was not enough splash by the special teams last year, period, in the story.
Right. This is not just a 2022 evaluation, though. It's their whole career in terms of what they've done in Pittsburgh and a little bit about their resume in general. So it's not reflective of just solely 2022.
But I mean, Danny Smith, the last couple of years in general, it does almost feel like he's close to having a meeting with the Bobs.
I mean, that's our perception.
Right.
Tomlin, there's never been any sort of report that's had that thought to it. I get that, and that's fair. I thought Pat Meyer did a great job last year. I think he's been a really important guy in terms of the type of coach that he is. I mean, he is not a yeller. You don't hear his voice at all in training camp. Like, he's a pretty quiet guy, but he's a really effective teacher. And this young offensive line with so many moving pieces and parts needed a true technical teacher, and Meyer is certainly that kind of guy. I do think there is some. I mean, the line was so bad to start last year. They really had nowhere to go but up. And because they were as healthy as they were, that kind of just helped the progression as well. Had Trent Scott had to play last year, had Jesse Davis had to play last year, probably a little less excited about the job that Pat Meyer did, even though it wouldn't really be his fault. And with Danny Smith, again, there are certainly fair critiques of him. You're right. The return game was not good last year. The punting's been mixed. There have been some issues, but I just think that the overall career arc that he's had in Pittsburgh at getting guys to buy in and also just the fact, like, dude's just a worker. I mean, he's the only coach on a team where he's the only guy that carries a special teams label, and he gets a little bit of help, but I mean, he does it all, and that's pretty rare to see. So I'm a little biased as well. I'll take that for sure. And I think if Meyer and the O-line has a strong year in 2023, then Meyer's going to certainly move up that list. And
Denzel Martin and Aaron Curry at the end are just primarily and being behind Matt Canada is primarily because of the newness, right?
Right. Martin's not new to Pittsburgh, but just trying to see his own separation because he's worked hand in hand with Carl Dunbar. You want to see Martin kind of a bit more on his own. I wonder if Pittsburgh will separate the edge rushers and the defensive linemen in terms of how they practice this year, because in past years, they were all lumped together. It was just the D-line and the edge guys working in the same group. I get the sense they're going to spread things out and have the edge guys to be in their own dedicated space this year in practice. I'll be watching that, but Martin's still new to that kind of position on his own. Curry knew it would be trendy and obvious to put Canada last. I put him 11th of 13. You could put him last, but if he has another bad year, you won't put him anywhere on this list because he will no longer be in Pittsburgh.
All right. A lot of effort in that. I respect that. And it's creating some generating some comments in there.
All right, Dave, what else do we have? Running out of things to talk about today, to be honest with you. They have OTAs Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Anything in terms of what you're looking for or hoping to hear about from the next couple of days of work?
Yeah, just overall, just staying healthy and see if we get some reports about certain people working in certain spots. Just, I mean, you're handicapped at kind of what comes out of there, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly, something that you're looking for that you can't see, and that's limited. It will be interesting to see, because there are 4 days, if one of these days is a team building day, I guess, and yeah, that's more than likely probably going to be today if that happens, I would think. So get through this week and then mandatory mini camp next week. All right, I guess we're running out of topics here on this Monday, right?
I was brainstorming some ideas. Whenever I can't think about what to write about, let me ask you this. Whenever you're trying to think of a topic, what's your process? Let me ask like the big philosophical kind of arrogant question here. What is Dave Bryant's process when it comes to brainstorming ideas? I'd love to know.
I just go and I stare at the roster, to be quite honest with
you. Is that what you do? Okay.
Yeah.
I do that a little bit too. I stare at Pro Football Reference though. I just start scrolling and just trying to find things to write about. That's kind of my launching point. And I was kind of scrolling through some stuff and I came up with a stat, and it's a little specific, but I think it's still important for the historical aspect of it. Pittsburgh's offense for the last 2 years has ranked in the 20s in scoring offense. They were 26th in scoring offense last year, 21st in 2021. If they finish in the 20s for a third straight year in 2023, that'll be the first time in franchise history they've ever finished in the 20s in 3 consecutive seasons. And the streak, obviously, you do not want to set. And they've only finished back-to-back years in the 20s for 3 times now, including 2021 and 2022. And so now, granted, pre-merger, there weren't even 20 teams in the NFL, but, since 1970, there have been at least 26. And so for Pittsburgh scoring offense, they're in a rut we haven't really seen that often throughout their history.
Yeah, if it stay, and look, I mean, we've said this several times, we obviously expect the offense to be better than it's been, obviously better than last season, and running the football is going to play a big part in that. And, hopefully byproducts are that is more yards after the catch, and they're going to need more explosive plays. But when it comes down to it, I mean, I don't think, just looking at, they're going to have obviously good play from their defense to stay in a lot of these games. Fortunately, I think the schedule overall is favorable for this team, but here's a news flash for you. You have to score more points than the other team to win games. Okay. And they are going to have to score more points this year, plain and simple.
Let me ask you this. We have identified 2 areas where Pittsburgh has to improve in order to score more points, because scoring more points is just the end result of the other stats improving. If you could only pick one area for this team to finish, let's say top 10 in, would it be top 10 in explosive plays overall, or top 10 in red zone offense? If you could only pick one of those to finish, you could guarantee be a top 10 offense in that category. Which would you prefer?
Man, I'm going to go you know me, I'm going to go.
I know you were going to explosive plays.
Explosive plays, because I mean, that explosive plays, you need those in today's NFL to produce scoring, and explosive plays can result in touchdowns on the back end as well too. And an explosive play can get you on the other side of the 50-yard line, and thus maybe get you in field goal range. That kind of thing. And explosive plays, especially outside of the red zone, even if we're talking, from the 22-yard line or the 25-yard line, those can most definitely end up in the end zone for sure. So we've got to see this offense be able to get chunks, plain and simple.
Yeah, I think.
And if I had to sacrifice, now look, you're not. It's not going to matter if you're in the bottom third of the league in red zone.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean,
theory, so there's a trade-off. But if you're telling me maybe just outside of let's say 15th overall in the league in red zone, but boy, your explosive plays have gone up in your top 10. I think you'd come out of that okay.
And hopefully, even if you aren't as efficient in the red zone as you would like, if you're getting more opportunities because you're getting more explosive plays, you'll take some of that volume over necessarily. You'd rather be, making up numbers here, 50 52% in the red zone with a bunch of volume than 60% in the red zone with half the volume, because you're just not giving yourself as many chances to get in close to score. So fair point there. I'll go red zone just because of the obvious correlation. If you're high in red zone, your offense is finishing drives, and you're obviously putting the ball in the end zone. But yeah, I think explosive plays is a key component. What do you think the number one way for this team to create more explosive plays in the pass game is? What do you think they have to do above all else to actually create more big plays?
Complete the football to players out in space more than 8.5 yards down the field.
Conceptually, do you think Pittsburgh did a good enough job at that last year?
No.
Okay, I'm with you. Kind of it was a softball question, but
right.
to steer the conversation, yeah, I think they did not do a good job of scheming that up.
And look, I mean, you just look at one of the questions about Kenny Pickett going into this season will he be able to complete more balls down the field? I'm not saying you have to be able to complete air yard distances of 40 plus all the time, but you've got to be able to complete the football more than 20 yards down the field, a lot more than what he was able to do, obviously, his rookie season. So, running the football is great. I think that should be the concentration. I look forward to seeing bully ball, but byproducts of that hopefully will be more packed boxes and more opportunities for him to take chances down the field and complete those things, because running the football successfully is just not going to be good enough if you're not capitalizing on potential situations that'll create for your offense.
Right. And for whatever it's worth here, looking up an article that PFF published today, and this is just one stat that is certainly lacking a lot of important context, but talking about this team not getting a lot of big downfield plays under Kenny Pickett. Pickett ranked 8th in the NFL in check down rate last year at a 9.2% check down rate. Now, to be fair, there's other notable names that were higher than him. Justin Herbert had the second highest check down rate. Joe Burrow was 3rd. Josh Allen 7th. But I will say some of the lowest check down rate quarterbacks were the likes of Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, bless you, and Lamar Jackson. And so just one number, not giving a whole lot of context there, obviously, but maybe we can keep an eye on what Pickett's check down rate is in 2023 and compare that to his rookie season.
One of the biggest jumps that I think Joe Burrow made in his second season was the ability to complete the football down the field.
Yeah, his arm, when I thought his rookie year in LSU, I thought his arm was not that strong. I don't know if it's just the Jamar Chase effect or what, but his arm looks 10 times better than where it was early.
I was surprised. I was surprised at the jump he made in that area. And then once again, how much is that of look, it doesn't hurt to have a guy like Jamar Chase, obviously, but they were also in a lot of situations where they were able to take advantage of out one-on-one matchups on the outside and all like that. And he was putting the ball where it needed to be, and they were making plays. When was the last time? Here's something for you to look up that I don't even have it. When was the last time the Steelers were in the same year top 10 in explosive plays and red zone?
Oh, that's a good question. 2018. Maybe first one that comes to mind. I'd have to do a lot of research to look that up. But
what year was Ben injured though?
2019.
Okay, 2019. Okay.
Yeah, 2018. They had the 6th strength offense. Let's see what they were. Well, they've had some bad red zone offenses, so that was a thing. Even those talented teams.
That's why I asked, because it seems like it's been like one or the other.
Right. You said 2018, right?
Well,
you said the last time they finished top 10. Is that in red zone offense?
And explosive plays.
Okay. Well, in 2018, they were the number 1 red zone offense that year. So I got to find out where they were in explosive plays. And these are just passing plays or overall plays?
No. Explosive plays in general. Any play gaining 20 or more yards.
All right. Well, give me a second here to go to our old trusty stat head here. I'm guessing Pittsburgh ranked top 10 this year with that offense being as prolific as it was. But that's probably the only year they've had it, in quite some time. So point taken regardless of what these numbers may show. So would you guess 2018 too?
Yeah, that feels right.
All right, let's see. Explosive plays, pass rush, 20 plus yards. Or I've hit I forgot to change the year. So give me 1 second while it loads here.
97 days to go until week 1 game against the 49ers. Yesterday, obviously, was 98 days, and I was able to go back and find the Casey Hampton fumble recovery.
I forgot about that. That was a great clip.
That he rumbled, what was it, 36 or 37 yards with against the Bengals way back in 2002.
Yeah, that was did they win that game?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I'm still stuck in. I forgot to change the year, and so now it's pulling all from 94 to 2022. I do that all the time, and so it takes a second to load that in. But it finally just loaded, so now we'll pick 2018 explosive plays, and hopefully it will load in quicker as I stall here and wait for it to load. So explosive plays, offense, Pittsburgh finished 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th. So 2018, they were first in red zone. They were 8th in explosive offensive plays.
And then that was okay. All right.
I'm assuming they have not done it since, because I don't think they've been in top 10 in red zone since then.
All right. Interesting nugget there to kind of go into, I guess, some reader emails, huh?
Yeah, let's get through some reader emails and close out today's show.
This from George or Jorge, one of the two. Just a fun question. If you can add any 2 past Steelers in their prime for this season only, one on offense, no quarterbacks, and one on defense, who would you choose? Would you go for Need, Ferrier, or Lambert, or just joy in watching Troy, Woodson, or Mean Joe? He said it'd be nice to see Dawson anchor this O-line, or Ward blocking on the outside. Yeah, he says start the season already. If you could have one, any 2 past Steelers in their prime for this season only, and you can't pick a quarterback. Let's go on offense first. What with the current way this offense sits right now, if you could add one former Steeler in there from the past in their prime, who would it be? And you can't choose a quarterback.
Gotcha. My first thought was Alan Faneca.
Yeah, mine too.
There's a lot of ways you could go, but I mean, and they have, good guards and say Malu and James Daniels, but neither of those guys are Alan Faneca, so that for this power run game that they want to have, Alan Faneca's your guy.
Who's the first guy from defense that jumps? I mean,
I went Troy, just first thought.
Okay.
But obviously you could pick.
Yeah, there's
Lambert,
several different ways you
Green,
can go.
Yeah.
Go that. All right. Interesting question there. Let's see here. If I got anything else, it's been kind of a slow.
There's not enough great tackles in Steelers history to choose from, because tackles a bigger need along the O-line, but it's harder to find that guy.
James writes in, David Knox, what tips do you have for a father-son trip to training camp on Latrobe to maximize enjoyment? He says, I have never been and plan to go this year. I know your goals to watch practice are different than the fans, but any tips would be appreciated, like the best places to get photos, autographs, shade, etc. Thank you for everything you do. Keep up the great work. I'll tell you the best way to answer this or to address this question. Get a hold of David O. Subburger on Twitter, and I know he listens to every episode. He obviously contributes to the site and has for quite a while. David O would probably be the single best person to ask, how to maximize just your Latrobe enjoyment altogether, as a fan, especially if you're your father-son trip and places to eat and places to get autographs and picture taking and all like that. Obviously I can't provide any help here whatsoever. And Alex, you pretty much go and you sit with your waterproof paper and binoculars and you're locked in that way. I mean, obviously you could help out with, probably places to eat in some areas, but James, I really think you should get a hold of David O.
Yeah, he's definitely the go-to guy for your training camp experience. Yeah, I mean, Route 30 Sharkies is pretty popular in terms of camp itself. Yeah, check weather. There's not a lot of shady spots necessarily, and rain. Usually there's a couple of rainy days, and so you got to be careful for that. Get there early because Steeler fans, as you probably know, they show up early, and you don't want to be somebody late from a parking standpoint, from a bleacher standpoint. Weekends always far busier than weekdays, but yeah, if you're going there for autographs, especially, and you want to be up at the fence line where the players come out, then you better get there really early to get that prime front row spot. Otherwise, it's going to be a struggle to get autographs. But it's a lot of fun. Just enjoy it. It's a great time.
My best contribution to this might be always bring a towel and a terrible towel and a regular towel probably to dry off with.
Little South Park reference in there potentially too.
There you go. There. So hook up David O. You know what? That might make once we get into the slow season, have David O. write the ultimate. I don't know. Write some sort of post of the best way to enjoy training camp as a fan, and maybe he'll have. Maybe this has produced some sort of creative aspect for David O to write an off-season article on once we get out of mandatory minicamp. So David, I know you're listening. So there's something for you to attack there.
And we should know the camp date soon. Usually it's about this time of year we get the whole training camp dates, which should be obviously late July. Just don't know the exact day. So should be within a week or so, I would think.
All right, we've made it through all the questions we have here, Alex, and I think we're about 1 hour in total. So we've been able to make a show about nothing.
Our specialty,
right? So we will be back on Wednesday, talk about whatever's happened at OTAs and kind of move forward there as the Steelers start getting on the backside of their off-season program here. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. And until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.